The WNBA's biggest star just broke her silence, and her words are sending shockwaves through every front office in the league. After weeks of speculation, injury concerns, and mounting pressure on the Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark finally spoke up about her return. But this wasn't just another routine injury update. It was a declaration that has rival coaches scrambling to rewrite their game plans and has put the entire basketball world on high alert. What she said next will change everything.
I've never really dealt with injury, and that's probably been a challenge in itself because when I first was feeling pain, I didn't understand it. I didn't know. I was like, am I just tight? Am I just getting old? Do I need to hit a stretch? Do I need to get a little rubbed out? Do I need some icy hot? What's going on here? So I think it's been a balance of understanding my body. And I know whether it's this year, whether it's next year, and even throughout my career, I'm going to be very thankful for this moment.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly,
so you can already sense that.
For sure.
Okay.
I know this is going to help me understand my body better.
The basketball world has been holding its breath for weeks, waiting for any sign of when Caitlin Clark might return to the court. The Indiana Fever's rookie sensation had been sidelined since early July with a groin injury, leaving fans, analysts, and opponents alike wondering if and when she'd make her comeback. The uncertainty had created a vacuum of speculation, with everyone from ESPN talking heads to casual fans offering their own theories about her recovery timeline. But when Clark finally decided to address the media, she didn't just provide a medical update. She delivered a statement that immediately shifted the entire landscape of the WNBA. Her words were carefully chosen, confident, and carried an unmistakable edge that sent a clear message to everyone listening. The waiting game was officially over.
You've been out a bunch of games. How are you staying patient?
Well, I'm not a very patient person in life.
The timing of her announcement couldn't have been more critical. The Fever had been struggling mightily without their floor general, stumbling through games with an offense that looked lost and a defense that couldn't find its identity. Every loss without Clark made their playoff hopes more precarious, and the pressure was mounting from all sides. Players were shouldering extra responsibilities they weren't prepared for. Coaches were juggling rotations that didn't make sense, and fans were growing increasingly frustrated with the team's inability to maintain any kind of consistency.
What are you learning about being a professional athlete through this injury, or through these injuries?
I don't think people on the outside always realize how much time it takes to be able to play at the level we play at, and how much extra stuff you have to do, and even just to prepare for a game, especially when you're coming back from injury. When I'm coming back from injury, and when I've been back a few times this year, the time I have to get to the arena to prepare myself and prepare my body, because obviously I'm doing more than everybody else, just because of the things I've gone through to this point, and just making sure I'm ready and doing everything I can. I'm there 4 hours early. It's just hard. It makes for long days, and I'm not saying I would change that for the world, but it's just a lot at times. And then you're doing that for however many games. And
Clark's injury had exposed just how much the Fever relied on her unique skill set. Without her court vision, the team's ball movement became stagnant. Without her deep shooting range, defenses could pack the paint and make life miserable for players like Aaliyah Boston. Without her leadership and competitive fire, the team lacked the emotional spark needed to fight through adversity. What had started as a minor setback had snowballed into a full-blown crisis of confidence. The league itself had been feeling Clark's absence in ways that went far beyond just one team's struggles. Ticket sales in cities where the Fever were scheduled to play had noticeably dipped. Television ratings for their games had dropped significantly.
Days where it's a little bit easier, and you're very, very motivated, and you're close to the finish line of getting back and being back, and then it's not I have a training camp to build up to playing my first game again. It's no, you're tossed into game 30. Go try to play well. It's hard. It really is. And I think it has given me really good perspective on what a lot of my teammates and people that teams I've been a part of, certain people have had to go through. I've never been through anything.
The buzz and excitement that Clark brought to every arena she entered had been replaced by a more subdued atmosphere. The WNBA had built much of its recent momentum around young stars like Clark, and her extended absence was creating a noticeable void in the league's energy. Meanwhile, opposing teams had been taking advantage of the situation. Game plans that once required extensive preparation for Clark's unique abilities could now focus entirely on the Fever's remaining players. Defenses that had been stretched thin by her range and playmaking could now collapse collapse on other threats. The psychological advantage that came with having a player of Clark's caliber was gone, and opponents were capitalizing on every opportunity. The medical side of her recovery had been shrouded in mystery, adding to the speculation and concern. Groin injuries are notoriously tricky for basketball players, especially guards who rely on explosive movements and quick direction changes. The risk of re-injury is always present, and rushing back too soon can turn a minor issue into a season-ending problem. The Fever's medical staff had been understandably cautious, but their vague updates and indefinite timelines had only fueled more questions. Clark herself had been dealing with the frustration of being sidelined for the first time in her career. As she admitted in her statement, she had never really dealt with injury before, and the experience of not knowing her own body's limits had been a learning process. The uncertainty of not understanding whether pain meant something serious or just required some basic treatment had been mentally challenging for someone accustomed to pushing through any obstacle.
How does it impact your patience? You know what I mean? Like, you're coming back from this injury and you know this, everybody knows this, that when you play that changes.
Yeah.
I guess the better question is, how are you like managing it so it doesn't impact your patience?
Yeah,
I know you want to be out there.
Definitely been hard.
Yeah.
The physical demands of professional basketball had become more apparent to her during this recovery period. She spoke candidly about the extensive preparation required just to play at the elite level, particularly when returning from injury. The hours of treatment, conditioning, and preparation that fans never see had become a daily reality. Arriving at the arena 4 hours early for games, going through extensive warm-up routines, and managing her body's needs had given her a new appreciation for the professional athlete lifestyle. This learning curve had been particularly challenging for someone who had always relied on natural ability and competitive drive. Clark had to confront the reality that being a professional athlete meant more than just showing up and playing. It meant understanding her body's signals, working with medical professionals, and accepting that sometimes the smart decision meant stepping back rather than pushing forward.
If everyone can stop the pearl clutching for just a minute, and I say that as a turn of phrase, not because it's women's basketball, you'd realize this is the best thing imaginable for this league. And listen, I said this back when Caitlin was at Iowa, and everyone was, I thought, being overly protective of her, and I thought a lot of that had to do with like, oh, this little white girl in a black sport. And I was like, man, she is a badass and a trash talker, and gives it as good as she gets.
But when she finally spoke to the media, there was no uncertainty in her voice. She looked directly into the cameras and delivered her message with the kind of confidence that had made her a star in the first place. She acknowledged that she had been listening to all the speculation about her injury, her team's struggles, and whether she would even return this season. Then she delivered the line that changed everything. Let's just say you won't have to wait much longer. Those words might have seemed simple on the surface, but their impact was immediate and far-reaching. Social media exploded within minutes, with clips of her statement spreading across every platform. Fans who had been growing increasingly pessimistic suddenly had reason for hope. Teammates who had been grinding through difficult games without their leader suddenly had a light at the end of the tunnel. And opponents who had been enjoying easier matchups against the Fever suddenly had to start preparing for a very different challenge.
I think just how much I was getting pressured. Like, it was just like constant full court. And also, I think as the season went on, like, that chilled out as much. Like, it's hard to like want to do that an entire season. Like, teams like, you don't want to pick up 94 feet the entire season. Like, that's just hard.
The psychological impact of her statement was perhaps even more significant than the tactical implications. Clark wasn't just announcing a potential return date. She was sending a message about her mindset and her readiness to reclaim her place as one of the league's premier players. The confidence in her voice, the directness of her words, and the timing of her announcement all suggested that she wasn't just physically ready to return, but mentally prepared to make an immediate impact.
Challenging part of like all this. So obviously I have the first injury and I sit out 4 games and then I come back and I play really well.
Yeah.
And I feel really good. And like even this beginning of the year, like I played great. Like I started the year really good. Like I felt really great. Like my numbers were great. I was shooting the ball well. And then I get hurt and it's like, okay, like you gotta get healthy, whatever. You're like, I'm gonna do whatever I can, you know, to get back to what I was doing and whatever.
For the Indiana Fever, her statement represented a turning point in what had been an increasingly desperate situation. The team had been hemorrhaging games without their star, and each loss had made their playoff positioning more precarious. Role players who had been thrust into larger responsibilities were showing signs of fatigue and frustration. The coaching staff had been forced to experiment with lineups and strategies that simply weren't working. Clark's impending return offered the possibility of stability and direction that the team desperately needed. The struggles during her absence had been particularly evident in crucial moments of games. The Fever had developed a troubling pattern of strong starts, followed by devastating collapses. Without Clark's ability to steady the ship during turbulent stretches, the team had repeatedly watched leads evaporate and momentum swing dramatically against them. Third quarters had become particularly problematic, with the team often managing embarrassingly low point totals during these crucial periods.
It's been hard.
Yeah.
Well, like, I'm gonna go to every road game no matter what, like whether I'm playing or not. Like, and it's hard because obviously I do feel this like responsibility of like being out there and playing, and like, not that I like think there's like a fear of any of this ever going away. Like, that doesn't happen when like LeBron or Steph get hurt. Like, they're always gonna be there.
No,
like, you
you'll
know,
be back.
yeah, exactly. So, but like, you do want to play. Like, you want to give people something to cheer about or scream about, or, you know, people spend so much time and money and resources to come.
Individual players had tried to step up in Clark's absence, with varying degrees of success. Sophie Cunningham had shown flashes of brilliance, delivering performances that reminded everyone of her potential impact. However, these bright spots had been inconsistent and often overshadowed by the team's collective struggles. The burden of replacing Clark's production had proven too much for any single player to shoulder consistently.
Early on, with the first couple injuries, I was like, oh, like, I need to get back. Like, but I think, like, my mom texted me like after this last injury, and like, they know how hard it's been on me, but my mom was like, you know, you've taken so much time for everybody else, like, you have to take time for yourself now. So just trying to do that the best I can.
The team's depth issues had been brutally exposed during this period. Injuries to other key contributors had forced the coaching staff to rely on players who rarely saw significant minutes during normal circumstances. Young players like KK and Chloe Bay had been thrust into situations they weren't quite ready for, while veterans like Bree Turner had been called upon to contribute in ways that highlighted the team's desperate need for healthy bodies. But her comeback wouldn't be without challenges. The Fever had developed certain habits and tendencies during her absence that would need to be adjusted. Players had gotten used to different roles and responsibilities. The team's offensive and defensive schemes had been modified to account for her absence. Reintegrating a player of her caliber and importance would require careful planning and execution to ensure that the transition was smooth rather than disruptive.
I think that's been like the hardest part, has just been like the stop and go of everything. Like,
Yeah.
and also like with the type of injuries that I've dealt with, like, there's no real, it's not like 6 weeks. All right, you're coming back for
Right.
the Connecticut Sun game on August
all about how you feel
30th
in the
or
moment.
whatever. It's like, how do you feel? Like, and even like when I have been back, like, I don't know how I'm going to feel the next day after playing, like when you're dealing with like these type of injuries. So I think just like the patience of dealing with all of that and giving myself a lot of grace, and just trying to be the best.
The chemistry issues that had emerged during her absence would need immediate attention. Heated exchanges between teammates, like the incident between Dana Bonner and Lexi Hull, had highlighted the tension and frustration building within the locker room. These moments of conflict, while perhaps understandable given the circumstances, had created additional challenges that Clark's leadership would need to address upon her return. The league-wide implications of her return were equally significant. Coaches who had been preparing for games against a Clarkless Fever would now need to completely revise their strategies. Defensive schemes that had been designed to stop the team's remaining threats would need to be expanded to account for her unique abilities. The psychological advantage that teams had enjoyed when facing the undermanned Fever would evaporate the moment she stepped back onto the court. Television networks and media outlets were already beginning to adjust their coverage plans in anticipation of her return. Games featuring Clark had consistently drawn higher ratings and generated more buzz than those without her. Her comeback would likely trigger a surge in interest and attention that would benefit not just the Fever, but the entire league. The business side of professional basketball was just as eager for her return as the competitive side.
Cool to like see people continue to show up, and like for my teammates, whether they're like fans of the Fever or just fans of myself, like they're continuing to show up and support. And like, that's why I've been trying to take as much time as I can. Like, I sign autographs for way longer when I'm hurt than when I'm active. So, that's never something I like wish for, but like, you know, I still want to make as much time as I can for people and, you know, give them something that they can remember.
The timing of her statement also created additional intrigue around potential matchups and storylines. Fans had been eagerly anticipating a showdown between Clark and other young stars like Paige Buchers. Her return would make those potential matchups even more compelling and significant. The narrative possibilities were endless, and the media was already beginning to build excitement around the various scenarios that could unfold. Perhaps most importantly, Clark's statement demonstrated her understanding of the the moment and her willingness to embrace the pressure that comes with being a franchise player. She could have remained quiet, continued her recovery in private, and returned when she was completely ready without any fanfare. Instead, she chose to make a public declaration that put additional expectations on her shoulders while also energizing her team and fan base. The ripple effects of her announcement were already being felt throughout the basketball world. Ticket sales for upcoming Fever games began to spike as fans anticipated her return. Sports talk shows dedicated entire segments to analyzing her words and speculating about what they meant for the team's playoff chances. Social media was buzzing with excitement and anticipation from fans who had been waiting weeks for any sign of hope.
This is something that do not be surprised if President Trump speaks on with that kind of audience that is protective of a Caitlin Clark and what she stands for and what she represents. And they come to a conclusion that they believe she is being unfairly treated. That is going to be a problem for the WNBA. And based on Trump's history with the NFL and him being an obvious sports fan, goes to events and stuff like that, he pays attention to this kind of stuff. I'm just warning them, watch it, because if he gets involved and that base gets involved, because somehow, some way they embrace victimhood on a part of
The broader implications for women's basketball were significant as well. Clark's star power had been instrumental in driving increased attention and investment in the WNBA. Her absence had served as a reminder of how much the league's growth depended on its marquee players being healthy and available. Her return would not only benefit the Fever, but would provide a boost to the entire league's visibility and commercial appeal.
I think that's also been really good for me too, is like when I do go out before games and like sign autographs and like see all the young kids or fans or whoever's come to the games, like it just like gives me a really good perspective on everything and maybe gives me a little bit of motivation and just being thankful for everything that I have, like, and very thankful for like my fans and just the fans of the WNBA, of like how they can constantly continue to support and truly just want the best for me too at the end of the day. Like, you know, I think that
as the basketball world processes Clark's bombshell statement, one thing has become crystal clear. Her return won't just impact the Indiana Fever's fortunes, but will send shockwaves throughout the entire WNBA. The league's most dynamic young star is ready to reclaim her place on the court, and when she does, the landscape of professional women's basketball will shift once again. The only question now is whether her opponents are ready for what's coming next. So, what do you think? Drop your thoughts down below. Like and subscribe and smash the bell so you're notified and never miss a video. See you in the next one.